In this box are over 1,000 fire ants, and in this video we're going to build them a new home and put them to the test to see how fire ants can work together and take down prey. Ants HQ, as per usual, sent us out everything we needed to take care of 1,000 fire ants. They sent out 2 outworlds, which is where the ants will do their battles against live prey. They also sent out different types of prey that we'll use, some nectar, food and containers to keep them satisfied, and last but not least, they want 1,000 fire ants. Now, if you don't know, fire ants not only bite like every other ant, but they also have stingers which leave a painful fire sensation, hence the name. And you'll get to see this stinging in action. It's insane. Now, before we can add the ants into the new home, we have to set up multiple stages that the ants will take down prey in. Now, the plan is to have 3 tubes connected to this small hub, where they can then move into the outworlds and eventually into the nest. Now remember, each stage will have a small boss fight that we'll have to take down to move on to the next section. So let's make their first stage. In this outworld, all I want to do is do the same as usual. Just some sand so it's a little more natural, and some rocks so they can climb and scout out the area that they're in. Then, once the first stage was complete, it was time to add the connector to the hub. And one by one, I slowly added the tubes into the hub. Sadly, some of them got squished, but it's so difficult not to squish a few when you do this. And after adding all the tubes, the thousands of ants started pouring out extremely quick. This was actually insane to see and extremely lucky to not get stung by them. Then, after a while, hundreds of fire ants started to flood the main tank and explore their new surroundings. I gave them a day to get used to everything before wanting to give them their first challenge. Their first challenge will be flightless fruit flies. These flies are around the same size of one of these ants, but they're extremely fast in comparison. And after placing the flies into the arena, the ants instantly started to attack the flies. Now remember, these ants don't just use their mouths to bite. They use powerful stingers on the back of them to inject venom into the prey. This venom kills the prey pretty fast compared to the ants just biting them. In fact, here's a close-up of the ants injecting venom into the prey. You can see they latch onto the fly with their mandibles while they sting the fly over and over to slowly take it down. Once they had taken down the flies, they then slowly carried them back to their temporary nest and used them for fuel for the rest of the ants. As the days passed, I wanted to give the ants something sweet, some nectar. This is very beneficial for the ants and will aid in the recovery before starting the next battle. And after putting some down, you can see a few ants started to become really interested in the nectar. And about 15 minutes later, loads of the ants started to flood around the nectar. I know it's not live deadly prey, but this was pretty insane to watch. A few days later, once they had fully recovered from the last challenge, I thought it was time to introduce them to their next stage and their next challenge within this stage. Now in this arena, it will just be the exact same as the first one, but with a much bigger challenge. I just filled the arena with some sand as I didn't want anything crazy in here, as it's just another stage before the nest is added. And after adding the stage, the first brave ant had a look to see what had just been added, completely unaware of the challenge already being inside this arena. Now what's been added as the next challenge? An isopod. These are extremely tanky bugs that the ants will somehow have to come up with a plan to defeat, as they can't attack from the top due to the armor sitting on top of the bug. Pretty soon, another ant started to make his way over to the new arena too. Was a battle about to happen between the ants and the isopod? The ants slowly started to explore together, and pretty soon they stumbled across the isopod. The isopod ran away after seeing the ants, but pretty soon some of the ants started to climb all over the isopod and try to figure out the best way to take it down. Then, as some time passed, more ants arrived and tried their best, but 3 ants would not be enough. And before I could even record, the isopod managed to go through the tube into the main arena, which is where it would make its biggest mistake. After a while, the ants figured out the best way to take down this beast, and it was to go under the isopod. And after trying to get under the isopod, the ants managed to somehow flip it onto its back, revealing its weak spot. The ants then managed to carry the isopod into the tube where hundreds of ants swarmed and took it down. And the next day, all that was left was a shell of an isopod. They somehow defeated it, but their next challenge might be their hardest yet. After a few days later, it was time to connect the final piece of their challenge, the nest. This nest is where all the ants will eventually move into and grow their colony further into thousands. Do you want to see a video of 5,000 ants versus prey? Let me know. Now, before we can let the ants into the nest, we have to prepare it with some water. To do this, we put some water into the sponge. This spikes the humidity, making it perfect conditions for the eggs to hatch and for the ants to be happy in. Then, a few days later, after connecting the nest, I wanted to give them another challenge. This challenge will be their biggest and hardest one yet. After placing the cricket into the arena, he explored his surroundings before going into the main arena, which again would be a big mistake, as that's where all the ants are. Most of the ants didn't get close to the cricket due to its size, and they were unsure how to take it down. Then, out of nowhere, the cricket started to make its way through the tube, which leads directly to the old nest, which has hundreds of ants still in it. Some of the ants followed the cricket in and tried to take bites out of him, but the cricket turned around and ran out of the tube into the main arena. The ants jumped onto the cricket and started to bite its legs. Now you can see the cricket is missing a leg already. That's because the ants had already taken one of the legs off and lifted it through the tube into the nest. And as more time passed, the cricket slowly started to give up due to the hundreds of stings it was receiving, which was slowly killing it. You can see the ants latching onto the cricket while stinging it over and over to release that venom into the prey, which ends up taking it down. The cricket tried its best to still put up a fight, but in the end, the ants had managed to defeat this challenge. And over the next few days, the ants were still munching away at the cricket, this being perfect food for the ants to last them for a while. With that being said, we had now given the ants all of their challenges and arenas. We watched how they interact with new environments and how they work together to take down prey. But remember, this is only a colony of 1,000 ants. In the future, I could do a colony of 5,000 ants and watch them take down much bigger prey. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos, and I'll see you in the next one.